Welcome everyone, are you ready for a whole quarter of fun and learning? Sit back and let's rock your minds with our first lesson. We start with the principles of communication. Specifically, we talk about A. The goals and scope of communication. B. Appraise the goals of communication. C. Identify the principles of communication. D. Discuss the underlying principles of communication. And E. Illustrate the elements and levels of communication process. Being able to communicate is fundamental to being human and a social being. Understanding the reasons behind our communication, the different aspects of human existence it impacts, and the elements of a good communication are all important. The study of communication is focused on how people utilize verbal and nonverbal cues to generate important ideas in a variety of contexts with other people, in groups, and even internationally while utilizing various forms of contemporary communication technologies. The discipline is primarily focused on each person's interests and ideas, with particular attention to how these affect the person's behavior. Definition of communication. Communication is defined as the two-way process of reaching mutual understanding, in which participants not only exchange information, news, data, ideas, and feelings, but also create and share meaning. Communication is also defined as a meaning-making system that follows the goal of conveying the intended message from the sender to the receiver as accurately as possible. Communication as a discipline. As a discipline, it includes the study of communication in interpersonal relationships, groups, organizations, and across cultures, rhetorical theory and criticisms, performance studies, argumentation and persuasion, technologically mediated communication and popular culture. Goals of communication. 1. To inform. The person is providing information for use in decision-making, but is not necessarily advocating a course of action. 2. To request. The person is asking for a specific action from the receiver. 3. To persuade. This is to reinforce or change a receiver's belief about a topic and possibly act on the belief. 4. To build relationships. Some of the messages sent may have the simple goal of building goodwill between person and the receiver. We are done with the goals of communication, so let's move on to the scope of communication. Communication is vast and widespread, as it is essential to every aspect of human existence. Here are some of the scope of communication by which we commonly utilize. In personal life. Communication is very much related to human life. From the first hour of the day to its last, one communicates to others. This reveals that communication is part of one's personal life. As a medium of expression and way of connecting and building relationships with others, we use both verbal and nonverbal communications. Communication helps us to both express our thoughts and feelings and make sense of the symbols we like to convey with others. Affairs. Communication takes place as a way to make diplomatic relationships and expressing common sentiments for the common good. 4. In business. Communication has various forms in the business sphere. It serves as a channel to transmit orders from the heads down to the subordinates, or a way to express the opinions, suggestions, or feedback of clients or subordinates. Principles of effective communication. An effective communication system is based on the following principles. 1. Principle of clarity in ideas. It should be clear in the mind of the sender as to what he/she wants to say. Communication is first to fully inform oneself. The clearer the thought, the more effective is the communication. Second principle of appropriate language. The communication should always be in a simple language. Ideas should be clear and devoid of any doubt. Technical words and words having various meanings should be used to the minimum. Third principle of attention. The purpose of communication is that the receiver of information should clearly understand its meaning. It means merely transferring information is not communication, and it is important that the receiver takes interest in the message and listens to it attentively. Fourth principle of consistency. Communication systems should maintain consistency in the objectives of the enterprise, its procedures and processes. It means communication should be in accordance with the policies laid down for it. Fifth principle of adequacy. The information sent to the receiver should be sufficient and complete in every respect. Information more than the need or less than the need is harmful. The sufficiency of information depends on the ability of the receiver. Sixth principle of proper time. The messages should reach the receiver whenever they are needed. Late messages are meaningless and the use of communication is ended. Hence, the messages should be sent before the actual need, keeping in mind the time required for communication. Seventh principle of informality. Formal communication has a prominent place among the channels of communication, but informal communication is not less important. There are some problems which cannot be solved with formal communication, but informal communication does succeed in solving them. 8. Principle of feedback. It is essential for the sender of the message that he/she should know about the success of the message. It means that he should see whether the receiver has understood the message or not. Feedback is easily obtained in a face-to-face communication with the help of the facial reactions of the receiver. In the written communication, the sender can get the feedback by using appropriate means. 9th, principle of proper medium. In order to make communication effective, it is necessary not only to have clarity of ideas, consistency, and completeness, but also to make proper choice of medium to use. One sender. Also, the communicator plays the specific role of initiating communication. This also refers to the person who intends to convey the message with the intention of passing information and ideas to others. Second receiver. This is the party to whom the sender transmits the message, also the person who receives the message or for whom the message is meant for. It is the receiver who tries to understand the message in the best possible manner in achieving the desired objective. This may be the most crucial element of effective communication. This is the subject matter of the communication. This may be an opinion, attitude, feelings, views, orders, or suggestions. 4. Context. This refers to the environment where communication takes place. This includes, among other things, place, time, event, and attitude of the sender and receiver. Pieta feedback. This describes the receiver's response or reaction to the sender's message. It is the process of ensuring that the receiver has received the message and understood in the same sense as the sender meant it.
6. Noise. This is any factor that inhibits the conveyance of a message. It is anything that gets in the way of the message being accurately received, interpreted, and responded to. It may be internal or external. 7. Effect. This is the consequence or result of communication. It could be A. Cognitive or a consequence that takes place in the receiver's intelligence. B. Affective or a consequence occurred in the emotions of a person. And C. Behavioral or the change in the receiver's behavior or actions due to communication. Your new gained knowledge about the basic elements of communication will be more useful upon learning the next topic, since it has already been established that communication is a two-way process. This may be obvious in your everyday dealings with people surrounding you. It simply follows that in the process of communication, meaningful communication happens between the sender and the receiver. Therefore, interaction is taking place. However, there is more than the face-to-face level of communication. This topic will allow you to be familiarized with the levels of communication. The levels of communication. First, intrapersonal communication. This takes place within a single person, often for the purpose of clarifying ideas or analyzing a situation. This may happen also whenever someone is reflecting or appreciating something. Second, interpersonal communication. The communication that occurs on a one-to-one basis, usually in an informal, unstructured setting. various and overlapping types of small groups leads to various types of communication patterns. Mass communication. This is a more public form of communication between an entity and a large and diverse audience mediated by some form of technology. This may be either real-time or on a tape delay basis, or it may be rooted in the usually